do, 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 do. We are back after 1 week break here on Live from Stadium Drive. I am Tommy Burns.
I am Matty Day. Tommy, you rested?
I do. I feel really good. I got a lot of sleep. I was able to kind of the Sunday's off. Basically, you have the bye week, and then thank God we had the playoff bye week that we were able to sit back a little bit and watch kind of everything unfold. But the stage is set. It's Packers versus Cowboys, and that stirs up a lot of emotions amongst a lot of Packers fans, including myself.
Me too, man.
America's team.
America's team. Rubbish. Don't you hate the Cowboys?
Ever since a child.
Since he was but a boy child, since he was wearing short pants. Tommy has hated the Cowboys.
It was the thing when we were growing up. It was just it was not a good feeling. I mean, you saw the kids around when they were rocking the Smith jersey and everything else, but it was very true. We lost a lot back in the day. Even when we were winning the big things, we lost a lot of the Cowboys things. It was
sure did, man. I mean, if there were the three dominant teams back then, it was the Packers, the 49ers, and the Cowboys. Packers had a way of beating the 49ers. 49ers had a way of beating the Cowboys. Cowboys had a way of beating the Packers.
Very interesting.
What's a game from our childhood that sticks out to you where the Cowboys handed us an L?
You think about looking back, and it's almost hard to appreciate this, but it's almost more funny looking back as far as the circumstances. The 94 Thanksgiving game, which is that 20 years ago?
Ouch. Even more. A little more. 20 and change.
Kind of crazy. Because I used to think back that anybody born after 1990 was really young.
Oh, not anymore.
But now it's the truth. But
we
came in there, Sterling Sharp, Favre, Reggie, everything else. But who was the quarterback that kind of carried to those Cowboys to victory?
That was one Jason Garrett.
Who is the
current Cowboys head coach.
It's funny how those things work out.
Full-ish circle.
It is. It's crazy. And, like, he's been interviewed about before, and he's like, boss.
Yeah.
Schmear, whatever. Yeah.
No, he carries that. He does.
Yes. He knows. That's in his back pocket that he loves talking about. And it's funny. It's funny thinking about because it was a lot of losses that we experienced, just like it kept going. I mean, it was... We even had successes as, we won the Super Bowl and never, but we still didn't go over the hurdle of the Cowboys.
True that. Even the year that the Packers won the Super Bowl,
96,
I was but a boy child. It was a Monday night.
Hold on.
Fuck it. It was a Monday night. I was a youngin'. I convinced my parents to let me stay up on a Monday night and watch the Packers play past my bedtime. And what happens? Even though we would go on to win the Super Bowl, Dallas just excruciatingly beat the Packers in a game it wound up 21-6, all field goals. Couple from Chris Jackie, whoever was the kicker for the punter, or the kicker for the Cowboys. NFL record of 7 field goals in that game. Just a god-awful game to watch. Of course, they would respond, but that was the team that they were back then, man. They were a thorn in our side. Anyone who grew up watching the Packers during that time, we kind of carry that with us. And
it was what I wrote before with the Brewers and the Cardinals. It was just a
big brother. Yep.
Yeah.
And not like an Orwell way, just more like, hey, man.
Yeah, just like how you step in here, mentally defeated before you come in. Which Leroy Butler talked about teams coming in, especially the Lions coming to Lambeau.
Sure.
In big meaningful games when you're already beat when you come there, and it goes both ways. We're not trying to tout saying, "Oh, we're the Packers, we're greatest and everything." Believe me, we've been on the Cowboys side of it, and as Wisconsin's fans,
yep.
Believe me, we went on the Brewers. Cardinal side of it where it's just like, really, like,
yeah, we've been on.
It's nuts.
Well, and even with the Cowboys, I don't want to say the Packers have more recently dominated the Cowboys like the Cowboys dominated the Packers in the 90s.
The rivalry wasn't there like it's been.
No, the Cowboys got really bad for a while. They kind of came back, And since then, there have been a few memorable games.
Feathers in the cap.
Absolutely. What's one of the games that the Packers won recently that tripped your trigger, Tommy?
I'm gonna take a warm, fuzzy trip down memory lane and just think about that 2010 season where we were rolling and the Cowboys were 1-7 coming into that week 9 matchup, and it was a lot of fun. It was a Nick Collins who we have mentioned a lot and talked about the importance of the safety position and the heart that he brings, but that's another topic for another day or for another year. But it was the beginning of our little head coach tour of of giving farewells to a bunch of different head coaches, which started off with Wade Phillips
Wonderful.
in week 9, Brad Childress in week 11,
Later, Brad.
and week 13 against Michael Singletary.
See ya.
Cannot
cool.
win with him. Cannot coach with him. Can't do it. And I like Mike. I like Mike a lot. I think Mike, there was a lot of talk that's kind of forgotten about how much he set up the 49ers defense before Harbaugh came.
Yeah.
And we can talk about Harbaugh, but that is an
No.
entirely different situation that we're not going to talk about
Let's
here.
not.
But that 2010 season win was seeing that team coalesce into that unit that won the game when everybody was just there playing all parts, and we walked all the way at that game 45-7.
It was a dominant win. Yeah.
It was pretty damn fun. But what sticks with you most is the losses. But there were a lot of very great wins. And it hasn't been very competitive in the last couple of years. I mean, there were the times when we talked about when we got our asses kicked. And then we came back when Romo was the choker. And we were dominating with Rodgers. And it hasn't been that competitive a match. There were more wins that were brought up than just that thing. I mean, we were kind of in control. Right?
Yep. I think I follow. I'll call upon, I summon the great win of 2009. That was my most trying time as a Packers fan, man. I was at
After that 08 loss?
well, this was 09. This is when Brett's first year as a Viking, Brett's first game back at Lambeau Field beat us, and that was just a very hard time to be a Packers fan and a former Favre acolyte.
Twice.
The next week after that Favre horrible experience, I had
Bergstrom, Wrangler, Cincinnati, it's awesome.
dick pics, cock shots.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
I got to go down to Tampa Bay and watch the fucking 0-8 Buccaneers beat the Packers, starting Josh Freeman for the first time, and that was it. I had seen my former idol beat my favorite team, then gone on the road, my first road game, and seen the Packers lose there, and it was just kind of like and I don't want to play anymore moment. No, I'm
Taking
done.
my Legos and going home.
Yeah, dude. I had a chance to go to the Cowboys game the following week, and I just said I can't take this. The team was reeling. That game, though, I mean, it was just kind of a moment where, going back to the history with the Cowboys, what better could the Packers do to get themselves back on track, to get the fans back on track, than to go and beat the good old Cowboys,
So
man.
much piss and vinegar there.
That team that just bullied us for years, and it was just like, I will never, ever get sick of the Packers beating the Cowboys specifically. Like, that is just one of those teams. There's so much history. But, us growing up when we did, man, there's the granddaddy of them all, and don't buy into the Ice Bowl 2 hype. It is colder right now than it's going to be on Sunday. It's like 5 below right now. 4 below. Feels like 26 below.
Shout out to Panasonic for keeping the shit rolling this cold. It's nice. It's nice though, you know what I mean? When it comes with a price though.
Ed Donatel with the weather report. We got 4th and 26 going on, man.
It is,
We got
that means a -4 degree and -26 wind chill. But we chilling and shit.
Big time. Mega
But it is
chilling.
something we can't talk about.
Dude, well, I don't want to buy into the Ice Bowl 2 hype of this weekend. The bigger story, man, we'll get into the bigger stories about this weekend. But, oh my gosh, we had our turn to reminisce about Packers games of yore. We got
Through the eyes of a 12-year-old?
Yeah, man, that's where I was at. I was 11 at the time. Shucks. Oh, our game. This other. Oh,
Through that old game.
Tossing it. Okay. All right.
I thought that's what was going on.
I got it. I got you, man. Tommy, reeling in the special guest tonight. Who did we have?
It's a friend. It's a longtime friend, a guy that's just been around the pack a long time, been around Wisconsin a long time, and he had the opportunity as a little 12-year-old to go to the game and kind of be there. Everybody's talking about it, and the NFL is so at that point so unfamiliar to us because we are so used to our hypersensitive, all the stats coming in. But that was a different time and place, and we got to talk to a friend of the family, a friend of ours, a real nice guy, Dan Huber, who kind of was there and was able to talk about what it was before, after, and during. And this is what we talked to him about it earlier today.
So we're kind of going to jump right into it here. If you can set the scene for us, how old were you? Who did you go with? How did you get the tickets? What was the situation?
Okay, well, I was 12 years old. My dad worked for Lake to Lake Dairy down in Kiel, and while he wasn't a big-time sports fan, he had actually gone to the Packer-Ram playoff game the week before on a vendor's ticket down in Milwaukee, which Packers won, and then somebody else, another vendor, came through for tickets for this game.
Was it hard to come by?
In that era, sure. I think that was, that was the time when the stadium was a little bit smaller, and you had your, pretty tight ticket list, as well we always have had. But at that time, I think it was just that much more tight. So, there was less than 50,000 tickets available, I think, at that point. So it was a big deal.
That day of the game, I mean, here some people didn't go. Was the stadium full? Was there any talk of you or any of your party not going?
No, I don't think there was any doubt that we were going to go. I think the stadium, it looked full because, obviously we still have the same kind of bench seats that we have today in the main part of the bowl. But I think there was a pretty good turnout. I mean, I would guess that for sure there were probably between 45 and 48,000 people there, maybe. That would be at least my best estimate.
So in those days, where did you park? I mean, what was the pregame? Was there the tailgating thing going on, or what was the scene before a game like that? Obviously, the cold was a bit of an extreme, but...
Yeah, the cold was unexpected. I mean, I think they weren't forecasting 15 below until basically the day it happened.
No kidding.
So people were anticipating, I think, a little bit more like a 10 to 15 positive degree day, and
manageable.
This somewhat came out of nowhere from what we all remember. At the time, the stadium parking was exclusively around the stadium, except for some outside lots. I don't remember much about tailgating because I was 12, but generally speaking, and my dad wasn't necessarily a tailgater, so I mean, I think we went up there more or less for the day and got ourselves situated and got ourselves ready for this game because that was
situated in what? You hear about people in sleeping bags or blankets and everything. What kind of stuff were you wearing back then?
Well, back then, I think the thing we got to remember, number one, is that we didn't have the same kind of outdoor weather gear that we have today.
Under Armour.
Yeah, no Under Armour, that's for sure. I mean, I think everything, what kept you warm in those days was wool. So it was pretty traditional in that respect. My dad wasn't a hunter or anything like that, so we didn't have a lot of gear in that direction. So it was pretty much, you still use the idea of layers and all of that good stuff. But, it was like, I hate to say it was like dressing up on a real cold day to walk to school, but it was that and just a little bit more. So, so it was, I'll say it this way. I was a pretty dumb 12-year-old, so I I don't think I had all the gear on I probably should have had on, but I think at least we started out okay, and it kind of went from there.
Had you been to a game before?
At Lambeau? Sure. I mean, I think for the most part, at that time, when we were able to get tickets again, it was like if he had a vendor or somebody like that that was treating him or giving them to him. I'd been to games, preseason games for sure. I'd been to a couple of regular season games, either in Green Bay or in Milwaukee at that point.
That's incredible. So, I mean, you said at first you were all right. What was the most things that stick out in your mind as far as the fans around you or the team on the team? I mean, I got to imagine there's certain physical memories that you have that you'll never forget, like did your toes freeze off or,
Well, I'll tell you what. Fortunately for me, I think I saw all the scoring plays in that game because, I mean, the Packers got out to an early lead, and then the Cowboys came back, and I checked this, it was 14-10 at halftime, favor of Green Bay. No scoring in the third quarter, which is probably a good thing because I spent most of the third quarter warming up, in one of the washrooms with a whole bunch of other people. And even back then, they had a radio playing in the room, so at least we were able to, I was able to warm up a little bit. So getting back in for the fourth quarter was the key thing because that's when Dallas took the lead and, the teams went back and forth a little bit and then finally got to the point where, there was 5-6 minutes to go and Green Bay got the ball for the last time and started driving down the field towards that south end zone. And we were actually in the southwest seats that day, so everything that happened on that long-term drive was happening right in front of us. But, yeah, in terms of being cold, definitely, there's no two ways about it. It was a cold day. It was extreme, and, a lot of people were just doing the best they could to hang in there. Is really what it was from the stands, and obviously from the players too.
So you had been to some games, but you were pretty young. Did the significance of the Packers going for a running play when they did on that third down sneak, did that ring with you at all, or were you just hoping they'd win?
Back in those days, I think what it really came down to is when you grew up in this part of the state and you're a Packer fan, I mean, you just expected them to win. I mean, these guys had won 4 titles in 6 years at that point. They were glorified to the degree that, you really believed they could do no wrong. And it was, hard to accept any time that they didn't win. So I think, there was just this sense that, if you read about what the players say about the game, I think the fans believed that too, that somehow they were going to do this. So it was just that way. You just saw that drive and, sure, it looked a little bit hopeless at some point because they weren't too successful right on the goal line right before, Bart Starr snuck it in. But still somehow it worked out. And again, they were just a great football team. It was, I think we all had a sense of history to some degree just because, like I said, there was just this expectation that this team was going to win. That's just the way they were coached, and that's the way we were kind of conditioned to react as fans.
Definitely. I'd say a degree of that prevails even today.
Yeah, I think it does. I think that you've got fans that, certainly this year believe without a doubt that this is a really good football team, and you've seen some real fine play by the Packers, obviously at home at 8-0, and you look at winning at Miami the way they did, and, similar games down the line here. There's no doubt that the fans...
Prediction for... Sorry. In a moment. To go to some of the other angles of this game, I read a funny quote that Frank Gifford said on air, "Excuse me, folks, I'm going to take a bite out of my coffee." Were they serving food and beverage there? Did you get any? Was your hot dog frozen? Or
what I remember about the vending is that there was not that much of it that day because, the hot chocolate wasn't hot. The coffee, if you drank coffee, wasn't hot. I mean, the beer, well, people drink beer out here all the time in Wisconsin, but I don't think that slowed people down. But what you may recall is that in those days, the Packers actually had a live band on the sidelines. It might have been called the Packer Lumberjack Band at that point, but those guys weren't able to play because the conditions were so extreme. So nothing really happened in that direction.
Same thing with the whistles of the refs, right?
Yeah, I heard that too. And then if you've seen like how Tom Landry, the coach of the Cowboys, was dressed that day, I mean, it almost looked to me like he had an overcoat and he had a regular old hoodie type sweatshirt underneath it. So they weren't exactly equipped for things. I think the story goes that, you know, some of the refs and some of the Cowboys actually just went out and got these real basic cloth gloves to wear that day. So nobody was really that insulated. So yeah, nobody was really prepared for this is what it came down to. And it, you know, anything you read about the lore about that game is probably true in the sense that people were really experiencing some, obviously the toughest conditions of any NFL game. You know,
that kind of brought me to one question I wanted to ask is because some people, or maybe I get a feeling that there's a fishtail, you know, it was this big, it was this big, it was this big to this game. Is there anything that you've heard that maybe you didn't see or not true in this game?
Well, I can say again. Yeah.
What's that?
Let me take a second on that. Why don't you just ask me that question again and I'll have something for you.
Was there anything that maybe is myth bigger than reality in this game that you saw, that you've heard about the game that you didn't experience or wasn't real?
Exaggerations.
Exaggerations. Well, I think you got the first exaggeration, which is, you know, the number of people that claim to be there. You know, there's that. That's always been there. In fact, I think there was an article in our local paper yesterday about how you could fake being there by buying a ticket stub on eBay or the Post-Crescent ran that thing. Or, you know, you could buy a program or things of that nature. So I think you got the exaggeration number one of that. You know, there's always a story that somebody supposedly grabbed Vince Lombardi's hat off of him during the celebration after Star scored the touchdown. I mean, that's not something I saw. I mean, that was on the side of the field we were there. But, you know, whether or not somebody was actually brave enough to do that, it's, you know, kind of defies belief in terms of that. But I don't think, you know, when it comes down to, like, exaggerations, I mean, the things we were just mentioning about the band and about the unhot chocolate and things like that, just the idea that, you know, all those things were happening before our eyes, I mean, they definitely were. They definitely were. It was a real day, I'll tell you.
So, at what point did you realize that this game could potentially be legendary?
Well, I think it was, in one sense, it was set up to be legendary just by virtue of the fact that Green Bay was going for a third NFL title in a row. Again, that's something that had never been done up to that point in modern football. It hasn't been done since. Yeah, so it's been set up in that direction. I think the other thing that I thought about a little bit today was that this was a pretty, in some respects, old Packer team, at least in terms of the guys that you counted on. I mean, four of the offensive linemen were over 30. Bart Starr was like 33.
And the next year, was it Lombardi as GM?
That was Lombardi as GM, exactly right. And Phil Bankston took over, and I don't even think they finished 500 that year. They just, you know, they got old quick, which happens in pro sports all the time. But I don't think it's something you ever considered these guys were going to be old. But, you know, this was truly their probably last chance, legitimate chance for a title.
Like
the other thing,
taking years off their career.
Right, exactly. So, so that I think was, I think the history in that sense was there. I think what the conditions were just the emphasis that all of a sudden here we've got this team that's trying to do something very, very special, and now they have to endure the conditions that existed that day. And that was a good Dallas team. I mean, you can't ever discount the fact that that was a team that played for the NFL title the year before against Green Bay and lost down in Dallas, and you know they were definitely on the rise. So,
they've been replaying it a lot, and Landry thoughts, and he said the game should never be played in those conditions, and you know that there was a sense maybe that he couldn't win the big one, is what I understand, and then he did in '71, but it was the two heavyweights in their history together in New York.
Right. That's true. Yeah, Lombardi and Landry were assistant coaches for the Giants in the late 50s. And a lot of, I guess, I don't want to say this, a lot of NFL football did kind of work its way out of New York at that time in terms of how teams developed, and just like in later days, everything came from Bill Walsh. I mean, back in that time, things either came from Paul Brown or they came from the Giants. So that was a pretty significant thing between Landry and Lombardi, without
That's
a
why
doubt.
you see that coaching tree out of New York.
Right. At the time, exactly right.
We've spent some time looking at the past. We're going to jump to the future. And are you going to the game on Sunday?
There's a possibility. I've got something, potentially lined up. I mean, I'm hopeful we'll be able to get up there and, see how things turn out. So yeah, I'm thinking it's a possibility. Sure.
What are some of the matchups you're most looking forward to watching?
I think, well, two things. I mean, number one, how the Packers' offensive line, handles any pressure from Dallas. Obviously, got to keep Aaron Rodgers standing and making sure that he's at top of his game and is protected as much as possible. I think the other thing too, again, is the Green Bay defense stopping DeMarco Murray. There's, I think there's a little bit of question about how well Green Bay might be able to do that, but if you can take Murray out as an option on that offense, I think things will go pretty well.
That's certainly what the Lions tried to do against Dallas. And
right.
Tony Romo had some decent success throwing the ball after that. It's a two-headed monster, this Dallas offense.
Yeah, I think we got to respect their passing game too. Again, how they've got weapons there too. You got to consider Des Bryant and is the other guy's name Williams? I can't.
Yeah, Terrence Williams.
Right, exactly. So I mean, they've got some, and Witten obviously is a great tight end. I mean, he finds a way to get open, and he certainly took advantage of some lapses by Detroit, late in that game. So
that's why there's a lot of similarities, I think, between these two teams. I mean, a lot of us maybe have rated on Tony Romo as a choker or whatever, but he's put on a hell of a season. They have the edge maybe in running backs. We have the edge maybe in wide receivers, but they have great wide receivers. So the offense are pretty similar, and both defenses are kind of opportunistic. It's kind of an interesting matchup.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to be optimistic. I mean, again, team's 8-0 at home, facing a team that was 8-0 on the road, which is certainly intriguing. But a couple of good teams have come into Lambeau this year, and Green Bay's been able to do it. The New England game was a great game. The Eagles may have been a little bit overrated, but they were not a bad football team, and the idea of putting over 50 points up on them was a bit of a surprise. So
the win over the Patriots.
Yeah, exactly. The 26-21 was it over the Patriots. It was a great game. It was a dogfight, from start to finish. New England kept Green Bay out of the red zone. I mean, out of the end zone, I should say, 4 times, which I think surprised a lot of Packer fans. But those guys had drawn a paycheck too, and they certainly gave the Packers everything that could be handled that day.
That was a great regular season game.
Yeah, it was exactly right. Devontae Adams had a decent day that day, and I was kind of enjoying the pop of big ones. So hopefully that's the kind of script that'll be followed. Is that get ahead, stay ahead, and come up with a win.
Any kind of final thoughts on this 2014 Packers team and what may be ahead, and anything that's in your head before we let you go, Dan?
Well, I think first of all, we can't be satisfied with having the season that we've had so far. I mean, I think definitely you got to win a playoff game to prove that this is a superior football team, and I think this is the opportunity to do it. As far as what might happen with another rematch against Seattle up there, well, I guess we'll see how things turn out. But this is a good Packer team. I think it certainly can get to the Super Bowl and have success there. But overall, again, this is a good group of players. I mean, you gotta, anytime you think about this particular team, you gotta think in terms of how resilient they've been, how they managed to play really well offensively with a couple of guys up front that have been nicked up, sitting and laying ahead. They hung in there. They played almost every play the entire season with one ankle injury and a toe injury, which is, again, just shows how much guts that Josh certainly has.
Kind of like the TT Hummers.
Yeah, well, yeah, we played with pain too in the old days, so it was just a different kind of pain. I think it started above the head, but some of those Wednesday football games were a little tough back in the day. But I'll tell you what. But no, I think it's been a good team, and I think that things are falling together reasonably well. As I said before, I mean, you keep Aaron upright, you can do a lot of good down the stretch here, and I feel pretty good about things.
Dan, why don't you toss out a score for this Sunday?
Toss out a score? Let's go with, it's going to be close. It's going to be like 27-21, Green Bay.
All right.
In the books, Dan Huber. I want to thank you a lot for sharing your memories and some of your forecasts and everything else.
Okay, thanks for having me, guys.
Dan Huber, ladies and gentlemen. That guy is gunning for our jobs. I mean, that's something.
He's a nice guy.
That was really special. Thank you, Dan. To your health, sir. All
good
beer
life,
is
good love, and little or no low back pain.
the beer is freezing on us tonight, so
It's still there, but it's a little.
Yeah. For real, Dan Huber, dude, was at the Ice Bowl. Get on my cord. Thanks, buddy. He was
As a kid, man,
he
like
was there. He was there, man.
I mean, think about that. Like, it's sometimes I think it's physical memories that stick with you more. Like, as far as what you remember, because like the bigger picture, the this and that, like may not stick with you because it's so conceptual.
Yeah.
But the sights and sounds and feelings that you have that stick with you is just, it's crazy.
What I'm really impressed at is, I mean, he was at the Ice Bowl almost 50 years ago. Wow. And he's on there talking about TJ Lang, DeMarco Murray, the players of the day. I mean, that's something. That's really cool. That is Packers fandom. That's what we aspire to here live from Stadium Drive.
Dan Huber. But he brought us kind of into the same conversation. I mean, what is the point? It's a lot of fun to think about all that hate,
dude,
or extreme dislike, if you don't want to get too extreme, for the Dallas Cowboys and everything else that happened. But what is most important is looking ahead. What is the situation looking ahead? Where are we at? Where are they at? What is the situation at? What is the home field advantage play into play? What is everything that brings to the thing? I mean, it's a very layered thing. That is, it's I love thinking about it.
It's a great matchup, folks. It's the all-time for the two teams. They have faced off 31 times. The Cowboys have won 16 of those matches, and the Packers the remaining 15. Packers with a chance to tie up the all-time rivalry here, and to do it in style, man. These are two teams that have potent offenses and pretty good defenses. Both teams were 12-4 in the regular season, and
there's
Packers
a lot of similarities,
with the,
isn't it?
I wanted to get there, man.
There's a lot of similarities. I mean, you look at the Packers, you have a 12-4 football team, a team with a quarterback who is right in the mix for the MVP call, a running back who is in the possibly prime, hitting high notes in his career.
Effective, yeah.
A diverse group of wide receivers, young, old, everything else, and enjoying a strong home field advantage. And that's the 2002 Green Bay Packers.
Shoot.
That's the team I sat in the stands with 7 Atlanta Falcons fans behind me and watching that game. The similarities are so similar because you don't want to think about it because it was so bitter. But think about how much of that was a little around the same. I mean, everything was comfortable. You expected to come in, but of all the matchups that I thought about or you see or everything that goes down as far as Packers and comparing stats and this and that, which I kind of like stats because certain stats, not all, are very great indicators of performance. But that 2002 season matchup against the Falcons was Amon Green. Brett Favre lost the MVP to Rich Gannon by 2 votes, which Matty called. It was incredible, though. I owe him $100. Don't say it, Matt. Don't say it, Matt. 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 Matt.
It's like a savant.
Matt. It was very interesting.
That's a hell of a comparison, Tommy.
But it was very interesting.
Well,
it was a team you expected to see, a team who had a lot of the tools, who had everything else, and a defense who was very opportunistic. It was very similar to what we're seeing right now.
And how did that one play out?
I remember just being so deflated.
Dude.
Just watching Michael Vick and just they ran up the score early and just sitting there and you're just like, really, really, really. And that's just what I just don't want so much to happen. You cannot draw similarities between a Brett Favre 2002 Packers team to a Aaron Rodgers 2014 Packers team and the Falcons at that time with Michael Vick to the Cowboys at that time with Tony Romo. But there are certain similarities you can drive. There are certain things you can look at and take a step back and be like, well, maybe, yes, a little bit, because we were just like, oh my God, Michael Vick is running around and being so magical and he has so much talent or whatever without the offensive weapons that he had. And then we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys with DeMarco Murray, Dez Bryant, Terrence Williams. Who's that motherfucking Beasley ass motherfucker?
That's fucking Jason Garrett had a kid and named it Leaf and stuck him out on the field, man. Like number 11 jersey. Like that's.
Isn't that the type of guy you'd love to have on your team?
Leaf Garrett? Hell no. Nah, Cole Beasley did all right, man.
He did. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets knocked the fuck out and he steps up.
Yeah.
Steps up.
No, there's weapons. There's multiple weapons. I don't remember like what the Falcons had receiver wise. That was largely like the Michael Vick game, and Tony Romo was not going to be moving around like that. But you know, it's more of just the fact that Packers had yet to have lost a home playoff game at that point. A lot of people expecting them to win. A lot of people expecting the Packers to win this next game, man. And I don't know. Let's talk about this matchup. I mean, you watched the Lions lose to Dallas on Sunday. The Dallas vaunted O-line. I mean, that if you heard about an offensive line in the NFL this year, it was Dallas's. And that group gave up 6 sacks. And didn't exactly pave the way for DeMarco Murray. That one was kind of won on the arms of Tony Romo. I mean, that guy's having a heck of a year. And those guys
point to the sacks, but he overcame.
Right, dude.
And the Cowboys overcame.
Big time. So they are similar to the Packers, where it's like they've got an effective running back and an effective passing game. So are you thinking both offenses kind of get their mojo going? I mean, do you see this as something of a shootout?
Does it turn into a which offense is better against the defense, where defense is better against the offense? You know what I mean?
I'm going to go,
like,
I think both defenses, I think both offenses are going to do all right. I think the Packers defense is going to make the change, or make the difference there.
But hold on though, looking at the offense again, as good as Tony Romo has had a season this year, because I think we can all say we've all loved saying, oh, he's a choker and Tony Romo can't get this. He has had an incredible and a very successful season.
True.
But who would you pick 10 times out of 10 to have you back in the huddle?
Ooh, Rodgers or Romo?
Aaron Rodgers.
Can you pass the Prince juice, man?
Please do.
Holy cats. Dude, yeah, no question. Romo's been a huge. I'm gonna pause for a second here.
Romo has been very successful. I mean, he is statistically very successful this year. And the one thing I was most impressed at is him not giving a lot of interceptions, because the kind of rig on him is you is make some good plays and he makes some bad plays, but he has not been throwing those picks. He hasn't been throwing those turnovers, and turnovers are the thing I want to get into, but it's
Well, bust some math out, man. I mean, like, we love Mike McCarthy. If you know us, you know we are sons of Big Mac. But we're going to bust out statistics. Big Mac will tell you statistics are for losers with a series of teeth clicks. But Tommy, knowledge. I want to
have
hear it.
certain things to go over which are turnover related. Because the most important things that I appreciate, and people can say I'm not a stat guy or I listen to all stats, but there are certain stats you can listen to. Most important to me are points per game and turnovers. Because if you look at our Super Bowl win,
Dude,
we've talked about it before, our turnover differential, and we've talked about points per game, what the defense allows.
big time.
So first of all, to hit defensive allows, we are basically even. Our defense allows, because the most thing I'm looking at is the defensive of the Cowboys, points per game allowed. We are basically broken even on the regular season at 21.8 for the Cowboys. I'm sorry, 21.8 points allowed for the Packers and 22 points allowed for the Cowboys.
Right on.
But where that comes from is turnovers differential. Here I go.
Drop it.
Matt, I'm a little bit angry. The Packers are leading turnover differential. That is
I'm giving you the figure right now. Right now. Tommy's angry. Let the man yell.
the Packers are leading the league in turnover differential at plus 14. That means they've got more positive turnovers than negative turnovers. The Cowboys are tied in ninth at plus 6. So plus 14, plus 6. At takeaways, which means the amount of times that our team, whether it be the Packers or the Cowboys, have taken away the ball from the opponent, the Dallas leads number 2 in takeaways at 31, but not too close. What you would expect is the Packers tied for 8th place at 27. So Cowboys have 31 takeaways. The Packers have 27 takeaways. So you may say, how can the Packers be ahead of the Cowboys with that kind of number differential?
How can the Cowboys be ahead of the Packers in turnover differential?
That is a very good question, Matty. It comes down to the offense. Because the other side of that scale, Dallas is 13, which is not a good number. The higher you get, if you're number 1, you're the worst. They're number 13 with 25 giveaways. They have given the ball 25 times away this year. The Packers have given away the ball, tied for 31st with the New England Patriots, 13 times this year.
That's stingy.
And you know where a lot of those giveaways come for the Dallas Cowboys?
Where do a lot of those giveaways come from for the Dallas Cowboys?
They are number 3, as in the worst number 3, as in number 1 is the worst. They are number 3 in fumbles lost.
Dude.
DeMarco Murray has 5, so that means you could say, oh, it's all DeMarco Murray, which is
That's a lot of fumbles for a running back.
How many give it away?
But 13? There's 8 more to go around?
So I would feel a lot better given that we are ahead in the turnover differential. They are maybe ahead in defensive turnover differential, but they give it away that much on offense.
Yeah.
That means we are pretty damn steady Eddie on defense taking the ball away, but we don't give the ball away a shit ton a lot on offense.
I dig that. I'll take that, man.
Which is just very interesting because you can say I'm just looking at stats and it's this and that and Owl thinks whatever, but those numbers stand time. And if you look at those points per game and turnover differential, it give you a pretty good indicator of who is successful game in and game out and who is the top. Look at it. Each year throughout the last 40 years, look who is out. This has been a thing. I'm talking about the teams who are either in the conference or league championship. Those 4 teams will be either in the conference or league championship.
Word.
I'm a little angry, Matty. I love and I hate turnovers.
Yeah, man. Those are stats, man. Thanks for bringing it to the table. I got one for you. Packers 8-0 at home. Dallas 8-0 on the road. Which one's more impressive, Tommy?
There's been a lot of talk about home field advantage, the cold, and the crowd noise.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say about the cold is that here in Green Bay, there's a lot of difference between 30 degrees in November and 30 degrees in April. That's all I have to say.
If you're from around here, you know exactly what he means, man. The way this week is trending, even if it gets up to 20 degrees on Sunday, that's going to feel a little warmer for the Packers. That's going to feel cold as hell for the fucking Cowboys. So we'll let that part of it affect it as it may. But Cowboys, man, I mean, they gutted out a tough win last week. They were down 14-0 to the Lions. Oh, my God. Really? Austin Straubel? We're filming. This is live from Stadium Drive.
Piper staked back, came everything, got like 5 lights.
So I looked at the teams that the Cowboys beat on the road. The only one of note, which is incredibly notable, the Seattle Seahawks. The rest of the teams weren't very good that they beat on the road. But that Seattle game, that's impressive. That's impressive. And I mean, if they can go into Seattle and not be deterred by that, which has a reputation kind of like Rosendale, Wisconsin, where it's just like
you're gonna get
you're not gonna
bad.
speed in Rosendale even if you never see a cop.
We've all been there.
We'll get back to Rosendale next week when the Packers are hopefully going into Seattle.
All been there.
But I want to talk about. I don't really remember. All I want to say is that the only team who's worth a damn that they beat on the road was the Seahawks, which is a team that is worth a damn. But that was also earlier in the year. Tony Romo is slowing down a little bit as this year's going on. He's taking a lot of sacks.
Everybody's talking about the cold, and the 2 things I think about the cold most are when a player, any ex-player has recurring injuries that are sore, they're not going to feel very good in the cold. Whether the severity of that injury is up to the jury, but if I had something that was sore or tweaked or torn or everything else, it would not feel very good in the cold. A. The second point is as we talked about, being conditioned to it and what 30 degrees feels like, A and B, and having all the thing, is when you're... People talk a lot about Des Bryant now, he's the heart and soul of the team. And I try to think of myself, and especially as an outsider who's not coming here, bouncing up and down the sidelines when everybody just wants to sit on the warm white bench with the heat blowing at your ankles and the heated jackets with the pockets of hot air coming at you and everything else, when you're just like, when you get off the sidelines, you want to be warm. So the presence of a guy who's running up and down the sidelines, yelling really loud and jacking up,
Right.
I just don't see that as potent in the extreme cold when you're just like, shit, I kind of want to be warm right now.
Yeah.
That's the kind of one thing that's interesting. It is nowhere near a deciding factor. It's nowhere near in the top 5 of deciding factors, but it is a factor.
Yeah, but go back to Atlanta, man. That's Atlanta, Georgia, coming up to Green Bay in January, and they didn't give a fuck about the cold. I don't know. I just it's one of those things where I've always felt like the cold can kind of have just this wild reputation that it can just as much jack up a player because they're so not used to it, where they're just like exhilarated by it and like, fuck this, I'm gonna battle through this.
Push.
Yeah. Totally, man. You see that out of teams sometimes when they come up here, just because it's such like a gimmicky thing to them. So I don't know. Let's take weather out of it. Let's just say neutral weather, but at Lambeau Field, where the Packers have not lost. And dude, how can you see them losing at Lambeau Field? I mean, 2002, that was not a team that was undefeated at home. Not that this team, I don't know, man. Fuck it. Let's holler, man. Like, what do you see happening in this game? Your mind's eye.
That was deep. I'm always one
There's
to
a reason
look,
we rock the G.
I'm always one to look at AB versus AC. You know, the Dallas defense against our offense and Dallas offense against our defense. It's always a very interesting match to make, and we've always said it may seem like a homer, but Aaron Rodgers is clearly history and this year a better quarterback than Tony Romo. And you look at our offensive tools, DeMarco Murray may be a better running back than Eddie Lacy, but I would say that I would not have anybody else besides Eddie Lacy. And then you have the conditioning and everything as far as the intelligence and the elements of our wide receivers, Jordan Nelson, Randall Cobb, and the rest of the supporting cast, Devontae Adams. That's the side of the offense. The defense. Did we talk about the Wii fence?
Fuck the Wii fence. Are you serious?
The Wii fence.
The only thing more whack than Dallas pumping this up as the Ice Bowl 2, which makes no sense.
Is the Wii fence.
The fucking Wii fence? Jesus, dude.
That's
Are you
talk.
serious? Are you serious? The Wii fence. Oh my God.
So you look apples to apples, the Wii fence against Dom Capers' defense. And
Oh my
again, my point is, I feel a lot more comfortable with our playmakers and our scheme and us being able to get a point in heads, because I will always say with the team that we run, just like a Peyton Manning with the Colts, and you can say they only won one Super Bowl, but your best defense is a good offense, because
True.
we thrive on pinning, making them pin their ears back and having to play deep ball and making them feel uncomfortable. That is the best thing, and that is where we thrive. That is where we get our turnovers. That is where we get our tackles. That is where we're able to get creative schematically. It's a lot of fun when that happens.
Dom's a hell of a defensive coordinator when he's got a lead.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And more often than not, he does. Do you think, talk about the turnovers and all that stuff. Do you worry about what the Packers are capable of? I mean, I'm of the belief that the Packers are going to be business as usual on offense, and it's sort of defense, man. What do you? I guess that's my question. Packers defense. How are they going to fare against these cats? Are they going to be able to hold up DeMarco Murray? I mean, Lions were, but that's a hell of a defensive line. That was the #1 regular season defensive line, rush defense.
And they played a hell of a game.
True.
I mean, they didn't come on laying egg. They played a pretty damn good game.
I'm so pumped we had this bye to for these cats to rest up. Julius,
We are Julius.
we are for real. Julius, getting
But it
some
comes
rest.
down to us. Like, are we going to show up when it counts, or is, the veteran presence of Julius Peppers and the talk of Mike Daniels and the stellar defensive play of HaHa Clinton Dix and Morgan Burnett coming in and asserting himself, is that going to translate into when it counts? I do feel it is.
Yes.
I do feel pretty good. I do feel like
LaTroy,
we were there.
Guillaume.
And what it comes down to, and listening and watching more and more of Aaron Rodgers, is because the impetus is on the defense, because they know the offense is going to put them in a position to win. So the defense is not just like, oh, everything's running on us. There's kind of a feeling I would understand on the defense where it's just like, we have to show and prove ourselves. We have to
Mutual back scratching, man.
if
Yeah.
we get you of yours, we're going to give you ours.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen? I don't know, but I like the setup that it is now.
Big time. Big time. Do the Packers win? And what will the score be?
That was a really nice intro.
Nice jam, dude. Nice jam. I'm an old jam. What do you make prediction?
Packers Cowboys divisional round at Lambeau with two very talented teams. I don't want to give much credence, but I don't want to spend too much time, but I want to dwell. I love Mike, so I'm going to say 29-19 Packers.
Word. You mentioned Mike. Shout out to Brian Carreyrou from Cheesehead TV. He put out a post a couple days ago that was, he gave New Year's resolutions for every member of the Packers team. I want to give my New Year's resolution for Mike McCarthy. He had a couple days to do some self-scouting with that bye. And you talk about their identity, man. Mike, your New Year's resolution should be play to your identity. Don't get cute or macho with the play calling. Use what you got. You got some real talent on the team. You do that, you're going to win this week. My score that I threw out earlier, Packers 38, Cowboys 24. Packers are going to make more plays on defense. We got a matchup, folks. We got a hell of a matchup. We're going to be at the game.
Super fun to watch against the same Cowboys.
Dude,
remember
love
when we were
it.
kids talking about America's team? We were like, why aren't we America's team?
Yeah.
That is all out the window,
Yeah.
but it is a lot of fun to watch because there's a lot of piss and vinegar in this game.
Fuck yeah. This one's for little Tommy and Matty. All right?
We the kids. We the kids buzzing around fucking up what was going on. These people talking who didn't understand what was going on with the pitter patter.
Which is good.
Which is
just
good. Rest in peace, ODB.
For Tommy Burns, I am Matty Day.
For Matty Day, I am Tommy Burns.
We are
Live
from Stadium Drive.
Playoffs, please.
Playoffs edition. 2K15. NBA. NHL.